By the mid-1920s, Hollywood directors were building massive, opulent palace sets, and cameras were moving through them with a sweeping, weightless freedom. Actors like Greta Garbo and John Gilbert ruled this silent kingdom. They had mastered a highly precise form of physical expression, conveying complex human emotions entirely through their eyes and subtle shifts in posture. Because there was no spoken dialogue, these films functioned as a universal language. A picture shot in California could be screened in Tokyo, Paris, or Buenos Aires without needing a single word translated. The meaning was entirely visual. Hollywood had refined a specific, fragile art form that relied on the absence of speech to function. In 1927, the premiere of The Jazz Singer changed the industry. Audiences heard synchronized dialogue for the first time, and Hollywood shifted from total silence to literal noise. Studio executives quickly realized their entire infrastructure, the open-air stages, the noisy arc lamps, and the expressive acting style, was incompatible with audio recording. The microphone arrived as a rigid, primitive trap that the art form was entirely unprepared for. The elegant, open stages of the silent days were quickly replaced by the cluttered reality of the 1928 soundstage. Filmmakers were suddenly wrestling with thick cables, heavy lights, and elevated riggings. Early recording equipment was incredibly insensitive. Microphones had to be kept perfectly still, often hidden inside prop faces or bird cages. Actors who were used to pacing freely across the set now had to freeze in place, huddled awkwardly around a hidden mic to ensure their voices were picked up. Camera motors were too loud, so studios forced cameramen inside heavy, soundproof booths called iceboxes. Because these were immobile, sweeping cinematography vanished. The camera was locked in place, staring straight ahead at actors who couldn't move. Capturing literal sound forced a technical retreat. The cinematic language of the previous decade reverted to the static compositions of a stage play. No one suffered more from this technical regression than John Gilbert. His rapid decline from box office king to an industry outcast remains the most famous cautionary tale of the sound transition. For decades, Hollywood lore has maintained a persistent myth about Gilbert. The story goes that his career collapsed because his natural speaking voice was comically high and squeaky, completely ruining his dashing on-screen persona. This shows a rich, full-frequency waveform being aggressively clipped and flattened by primitive recording equipment. Gilbert possessed a perfectly normal mid-range baritone, but early microphones failed to capture his lower frequencies, severely thinning his tone before it reached the theater speakers. The hardware failure was compounded by human error. Studios brought in vocal coaches from the theater world who forced Gilbert to recite stilted, repetitive dialogue. Instead of his usual mysterious charm, he was forced to repeatedly declare his love in a rigid, unnatural cadence. A combination of hardware limitations and literal, unimaginative scripts destroyed Gilbert's screen persona, rather than his own biological voice. Gilbert's struggle was part of a systemic crisis that affected dozens of established silent film titans in a matter of months. The sudden necessity of the spoken word turned regional accents into instant liabilities. Vilma Bonke, an incredibly popular actress from Hungary, saw her career end because audiences rejected her heavy inflection. Norma Talmadge faced exactly the same fate when her thick Brooklyn dialect clashed with the refined aristocrats she usually played. Introducing spoken English also destroyed the seamless exportability of American films. A movie that would have played effortlessly in Rome or Berlin just a year earlier now alienated those non-English-speaking audiences overnight. Cinema became provincial. The globally understood medium of the 1920s was suddenly restricted, tied down by heavy recording equipment, and locked into local languages. 1928 was the year the dream of the silent image finally met the noisy, unyielding reality of the modern world.